And I'm going to say hi, everyone, and welcome to our February 4th, which is our rescheduled from January 28th, new Grantee-Staff Transition Committee meeting. Thank you, everyone, for your patience on last week's rescheduling. Sometimes the federal government pops up with these meetings and, they expect you to go to their schedule instead of working with them. So we appreciate everyone's ability to join us this morning. I do anticipate that we'll have a few people either joining us late due to late starts at schools because of the weather today, or even possibly that people will not be joining us today because of the bad weather. I know I'm in a blizzard warning right now, and it kind of looks like it outside my window. So today's topic is going to be talking about budgets and budget management. I'll just kind of generally say this, the intent and design of the new Grantee-Staff Transition Committee work is to really just make this a platform for everybody to kind of learn about the documentation and strategies and tips and best practices that kind of go along with your 21st century site. And of course, budgets is a big part of that. So my assumption is that most of you have a financial person connected to your site or organization, and this is their job, right? So full disclosure, I never was a super strong financial person when it came to, some people get super excited over spreadsheets and things like that. And I was like, yep, that's a useful tool and somebody could help me with that. But I was really much more interested in working with the kids. So this is not going to be and this is how you log into this system, and this is how you file a claim. It's not that type of thing. But today, Vic is going to kind of give you an insight into a really kind of upper level viewpoint of what budgets for 21st century look like, and hopefully answer a few questions that you might have as it connects to programming in particular, to help you better understand the grant dollars that you have received and what you can do with those, and possibly what you can't do with those. And then also, maybe again, if you have questions, you can then ask Vic, of course, but you can also maybe look to your financial person in your site or organization then too. So hopefully you'll find this informative today. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Vic and say good morning, Vic.
Morning, Crystal. Can you allow me to share my screen?
Yes, give me 1 second and I will do so.
Wonderful.
Okay, sir, you should be ready to go.
Wonderful. So to get started on this, the budget is how you guys get your funding to pay salaries and buy supplies and things like that. However, I try to do some monitoring within that budget document too. So if your finance person is taking care of most of the expenses, there's a critical area on the spreadsheet that you're going to have to send to them, and that is attendance. And we monitor that every quarter. So let me share my screen. Okay, give me a second. I got a lot of stuff open here.
So it's fun finding those tabs, isn't it?
Well, I have to click on all the documents because it's never got so many things open here.
All right. Well, while Vic is doing that, just based on your backgrounds, I'd say it looks like a few of you are at home. So I'm glad you're home and can stay safe. A couple of you, it looks like maybe you're at your school. So please be careful driving home today after things get all said and done, because again, I think this could get kind of nasty pretty quick. But okay, Vic's got the screen up now, so back to him.
So this is our wonderful spreadsheet. In the past, we used to fill it out based on the application budget that was done in Word. Well, we kind of eliminated that. Now we just send you this spreadsheet. And you guys, you and your finance folks need to work together to fill out the amount on your budget, and you can make changes every quarter. So let's say that you didn't budget enough money for supplies and you got too much in transportation. So every quarter you can get with me. I have to approve every change, but it's pretty easy to do and allows you to spend all your money in an efficient way. Now, see right here, there's a little blue box and two yellow boxes. This is where you're going to enter some attendance data. And you'll put in the numbers there. And that's what I monitor to make sure that you've got kids. Now, we had first quarter come in with the pandemic. A lot of folks didn't start up their programs and they're sending in claims first quarter, and I'm seeing no kids being served. So I'd follow up with them and I said, are you running a program? Well, there's a rule for the DE that if you're not serving kids on these programs, you can't claim any expenses. And so those claims could not be approved because, you know, the whole thing, all of our programs are based upon serving kids. And that's a little different because we had, when the schools were closed, we were able to pay salaries out of these program funds. But as soon as the schools reopened, then our programs had to be serving kids. So, you know, in a nutshell, that's the gist of it. But anyway, the biggest expense is generally personnel, and there's some different categories on that. Your finance person can worry about what to put in which category. Professional development, you need to spend 5% for staff training because that's a very important part of this program. If you're going to have a good program, you need to have staff that are trained to deliver those things. And so that expense goes there. And the next thing we have is student access. Transportation is a big expense in some areas. And so we also have safety and accessibility expenses that can go in there. The next one is evaluation. Every year, programs have to turn in a local evaluation, and that's required by federal statute. We collect those and we use those to compile our state evaluation, which ends up being about 100 and some pages every year. However, at the local level, you're supposed to publicly post that evaluation so your community can see what you've been doing with these federal dollars. And we actually read all of these. So there's a couple thousand pages every year in reading. And then we also look at the data. Sometimes, you know, there's questions. We want to make sure your data is good and that your numbers add up. And then finally, we have the admin costs. Percentages. The evaluation cannot exceed 4%. And then admin costs cannot exceed 8%. And that includes indirects. And that's just how this program was set up. And so it's kind of low compared to other grants, but it is sufficient because we have schools signing assurances that they're going to help with this grant. And in many cases, schools provide administrative support to the operation of this program, and that reduces the admin expense. And then there's total expenditures, and then finally there's non-federal program income. Now we have that in there for programs that are charging a fee. While it's not illegal, it's not a best practice. And, you know, if you're charging a fee, you're going to have to report that and count it as program income. And that money has to be spent before you can be reimbursed with federal dollars. It's a lot of extra work, both collecting the money and reporting on that money. And really, it's not worth it. I think you're going to get a lot more support from your communities and be able to get a lot more uh, maybe not dollars, but you'll get support in terms of having people come out and teach your program, volunteers, maybe facilities, and those things really do add up to helping the programs become lower cost. So, and then there's two categories to this budget. There's the regular program part, and then if I move up here, you can see there's also family literacy, which is, family engagement. We monitor that. You're required to have one family engagement meeting per quarter. So every time you turn in an expense sheet, you should have some kind of an expense in family literacy. Now, family literacy is not going to be in every one of those categories, but you need to be aware that we monitor this spreadsheet for, general compliance with the program. It's pretty easy to run a family engagement meeting. You don't have to necessarily have a big event. You may have one where you work with a local community college and they provide a presentation on all of the classes that are available for adult education one night. You may have another night where you're giving certificates out to the kids on reading scores, who got the best, or even best attendance in the program. Parents will come out if you're giving their kid an award. They like that. You could have, a potluck dinner, or even ask community restaurants if they would give you a discount or even donate. In some of our areas, just being asked, the restaurants provide the food for free for these community events. And we also have a guide to family engagement that you can access through the list of resources. And like I said, we have an online system called CASA that your finance person is going to go into and upload the documents. In addition to the spreadsheet, the finance person is going to put in what they call a general ledger. And that general ledger is just like listing everybody's name who's getting paid, in the program, and also telling me in the supplies, did you, buy them from the local business or did you buy them online? Things like that. And it just helps me to get a little sense of where people are spending their money. And when I review those things, if, I have a question, I'll follow up. And sometimes it's not unusual for me to say, let's have a meeting before you turn in your next spreadsheet. And I do that to try to help you. I feel an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And I don't like doing a lot of paperwork. So I'll try to have these meetings and get you guys on the right track. All of the things that I do are to provide remediation for you, because there's just a ton of rules with these federal programs, and I try to make it as easy as I can, but we still have to maintain our compliance with the feds. So are there any questions about the budget or the spreadsheet or anything else in the program that you'd like to ask? You might have to unmute your mic, or you can type it in the chat. Some people are bashful about speaking in an online forum like this, and that's okay. You can always type it in the chat.
So while people are either formulating their thoughts or typing in the chat, I would also just maybe throw this out as a former site coordinator. I managed a grant that had a couple of different locations, which of course meant that I couldn't be at both places at the same time. And one thing that I would strongly encourage everyone on the call today to think about is how you can continue to communicate with the person who does the financial component for your program. And by that, what I mean is this. It was a fairly common occurrence, especially pre-COVID, that, a very generous person might stop by a site and drop off a bunch of school supplies for the kids. And it's great. And, they maybe they got a picture and they hopefully got their name and address to send them a thank you note. But those types of in-kind contributions are important to document as well, because we do also ask, what types of in-kind support have you received for this grant? So what I did to circumvent that as the project coordinator is every single month I would meet with my site staff, and as just part of that ongoing agenda, we covered everything from what are you doing this month for programming to what kind of a need do you have? Do you need supplies? Do you need manpower? Do you need, this, that, everything else? And by the way, did you receive any in-kind contributions this month? Because it allowed me then to be able to work with our financial person to put a value on that and then be able to report that out for the financial considerations for the grant as well. And again, we had the same thing happen with a church who wanted to, maybe adopt us for picnic, and that they provided hot dogs and chips for the kids or something like that. So kind of be thinking about those types of things as well. The other thing that I would recommend is, again, as you're thinking about things you need for your programming, you saw on Vic's spreadsheet, obviously there's a line in there for program supplies, but we do have some restrictions or limitations with those too. So for example, technology. And Vic will explain this more in just a moment. If you are wanting to spend some of those dollars on program supplies, it's always a good idea to have that communication with your financial person, because they will understand those allowable and unallowable expenses. So, Vic, do you want to maybe explain that technology component again? Because I feel like this is a question that comes up fairly often.
Well, there are other sources that you can use for technology. For example, the ESSER funds that are going out right now to all the districts. You can also use Title IV Part A. We're Part B. And what we are more flexible on is feeding kids. That's so important for development and learning, is to make sure these kids have good nutritional meals. And that's much more important than getting them, some sort of a device. Another complication with technology comes in accounting for that technology. So this program has not been about buying the tech things for the kids, but supporting them with materials for learning and providing more human support. Let me share with you the statistics. All these districts are going one-to-one. There's actually less than a 1% increase in student achievement by buying this kid a device. But by having a human work with a child and provide tutoring, it's a solid 15% improvement. And that's including having somebody that's not a certified teacher, but just a volunteer working with a child. And so the data supports providing funding for human interaction rather than technology. And, I'm saying that I used to be the state ed tech director. And, I used to work with all these one-to-ones. And, I know this data. But the tech companies are still pushing it because, hey, it's sales. I'm more concerned about the kids and what can we do to help them. So that's one of the reasons why we don't have technology. Now, there might be a case where there's something, exceptional. In that case, contact me. This grant is very flexible in a lot of ways. Some of the states don't allow you to even buy food, not in Iowa. In Iowa, sometimes there's, you may not be at 50% free and reduced lunch, you might be at 46%, and you can't qualify for the food and nutritional repayments. In that case, you can use 21st century funds because kids are our priority. So any questions on that? Oh, here's another example for you. There was some research about buying washing machines because kids, in poverty didn't often have clean clothes to buy to wear for school. And I sent that out as information and I got a bunch of requests back. Can we buy a washing machine with 21st century funds? No, I'm sorry. But if you've got community folks that want to, provide maybe a used washer and dryer, or, even an appliance store that wants to provide one as a donation, that's fine. You just can't use these federal funds for, that's considered an equipment purchase.
Yeah, thank you. So what questions do folks have today? Is there something that maybe sparked in your mind when Vic was showing the spreadsheet that you're wondering about? Do you have questions about allowable expenses?
Well, a lot of times your finance people have a good idea about allowable. They may tell you that it's not allowable because those rules are in what they call EDGAR, and it's a big electronic federal document that these finance people read, and they use it to keep all of their title programs in compliance. So you do have a local source.
Okay, any other thoughts on today's topic? We did have a suspicion that this was going to be a shorter meeting. Again, just going out on a limb here, budgets are not the most exciting thing in the world, But
I
again,
know I'm not a budget person either. I'm a program person.
Yes.
So
yes.
I try to keep it as concise as possible. Speaking of that, since we're using the spreadsheet now, I've been contacting folks about not scanning those spreadsheets and sending me a PDF, but just send me the spreadsheet. Don't make extra work for yourself. You can upload that whole thing directly. And then one of the things I got back was, but how are we going to sign it? I says, type your name in the spreadsheet. That's fine. We've made a lot of relaxation at the DE in order to facilitate online transfers of funds and things like that. So there's been positive changes for us to in the area of finance.
Yeah, great. So, okay. So if there are no questions, that's absolutely fine. Just want to thank everybody for joining us today. I also want to remind you that we will go ahead and have our regularly scheduled February meeting, which will be on February 27th, I believe. But I will, you should have a calendar invitation, and I will be updating that with the topic. The topic that we're going to present at the end of this month is the Iowa After School Alliance recently put together we're calling it an After School in a Box toolkit. It's designed for programs who do not have an after school program to get started, or for current programs to look at specific content areas and use that as a best practice model or way for you to maybe brush up or get some new and refreshing ideas on areas where you feel like maybe you could use a little improvement. So I'll be presenting at the end of the month. I'll be sharing with each of you that document and teaching you how you can download the whole thing, which is 200 something pages, or you can look at individual sections. And if you want, we can certainly spend more time on sections that you feel like need a little bit more discussion. So for example, staffing is something that a lot of people are really struggling with right now because of the pandemic, because of restrictions for the number of kids to be served and so on and so forth to keep everybody safe. We can maybe have a little bit more discussion about that. So it will be me presenting, but it's also going to be a bit of an open discussion session then. So hopefully you can join us for that. We will not be meeting in March because it's just with sites having different spring breaks, and especially this year with not really knowing what spring breaks might look like, we'll take a break in March and then we'll resume again in April. So I will stop the recording